Hello, so now we're going to go over every new unit in the set. So this is set 14, an early look at it. If you like my content, please make sure to like and subscribe because I'm going to be doing a lot of set 14 content. As soon as the set's released to PvE, there will be VODs and videos of actual gameplay, which will be very exciting and fun. Up until the actual release, which will be on April 2nd. So this is TFT Cyber City set 14. What we're going to do is we're just going to read through most of the units, kind of skim through a couple of them, just to get a little bit of an understanding of what the units do, what their probably build path is towards these units, and then start to theory craft or make ideas about what the boards are going to look like. This is kind of like a little introduction to each of the units, just to give a little bit of an insight on what I'm kind of planning and looking at when I'm planning around a new set. So anyway, let's go through it. Alistar, so Golden Ox Bruisers, so scales well with like spending gold, and then Bruiser HP. So passive, reduce incoming damage. A lot of times this is okay, but it seems very AP focused, so probably AP tank items are going to be great here. Deal magic damage and stun. Stun on a 1 cost, pretty interesting and pretty cool. He only stuns 1 unit though, so it's not like Giga Broken, but this might be a really good early game 1 cost unit, depending on how tanky the unit actually is in fruition. Dr. Mundo, so 3 traits on a 1 cost, pretty interesting, could allow you to make some creative boards early game, so I like that. 3 traits, really good for flex play as well. Street Demon, Bruiser, Slayer. So passive, gain 30% more max health from all sources. This seems pretty interesting and pretty cool. And he also probably scales well with reroll. So if there's like a reroll Slayer option or a reroll Bruiser option, this is something that might work out really well. And Alistar and Dr. Mundo, both Bruisers. So you have a little bit of like a 1 cost reroll framework kind of working out here. Flex, healing, a bunch of thing that scales off HP as well. It's on 3% HP, and then his damage also scales off his HP. So this seems really interesting. I think his whole kit's built around a little bit of HP, but he does have like a good AP and AD scaling, excuse me. So I'm not sure exactly how it would be built. I'm not sure. It depends how much HP he actually has, like when you actually play him on the board. If you're supposed to build him more towards a tank, or if you're supposed to build him more towards like the Slayer trait, that he's more of like a damage dealer. But I think he's more of a tank. Just looking at the numbers, they don't look that high for the damage. But maybe I'm wrong. Jax. Jax is a Exotech Bastion. So Bastion is like the dedicated sentinel / armor trait of the set. So you gain a shield for 4 seconds and then deal magic damage. This feels like the old multi-striker Jax from a couple sets ago, where he gains shield and then he does magic damage. So he doesn't gain extra armor or resistances, so he seems like he might be a little bit more of like a damage dealer frontline unit. So this is interesting. AP tank items is what I always suggest when I see good AP scaling on a frontline unit. So that's like your crown guards, your adaptive helm, stuff like that. Kindred, so Fire Wolf at the current target, dealing physical damage. Overkill damage bounces to the nearby enemy. So overkill is really interesting. Rapid Fire Marksman are insane traits. So basically Rapid Fire gives AS, Marksman gives AD, Nitro is like that dedicated reroll line, so you're probably going to be carrying Kindred. Really low mana threshold. I don't think this is a mana user though. I think this is more with Rapid Fire going to be like an auto attacker. So the chances are you're going to put like a Guinsoo on Kindred, I think. Like Guinsoo IE or Guinsoo like damage. You get the overkill damage to bounce to a near enemy, so you probably want to scale up that damage. You get base AD from Marksman if you activate Marksman, so it's probably going to be like IE and then some damage amp item like IE Guardbreaker Guinsoo might be like something crazy on Kindred. Not sure though, we'll see how it works out. Maybe they don't auto attack that well and then you gotta give a mana item. We'll see. Kog'Maw is probably just going to be an auto attacker, right? For the next 5 seconds, gain 50% attack speed, and attacks deal bonus physical damage. So this empowers your auto attack, so this is definitely like just a Guinsoo, Kog'Maw build. You know, you just make him auto attack as much as possible. Rapid Fire as well. So we have Rapid Fire's 1 costs. So the chances are you might be able to play like a Nitro Boombot board. Maybe that's what the TFT set's going for, because you're going to have 2 Rapid Fire units that you can just put in the backline, and both of them seem to... this guy at least likes to auto attack, so you can probably play around both of these as your backline carries. Morgana, Divinicorp, Dynamo. So Divinicore, just good to give like a little bit of extra sauce to your whole team, right? It gives a little bit of extra mana, I believe. Hack the target. This is similar to like Morgana in the current set. Really low mana threshold, so if you're really trying to, if Morgana's like good as a carry, then it's like blue buff on her. Her AP scaling though is very bad on her 3-star, I think. I think her AP scaling in the current set is significantly higher. So at least for 3-star Morgana. I might be wrong about that, but when I look at this, I don't see her as like a main carry. Maybe I'm wrong, but she does, these numbers don't strike confidence for me of her being like a primary carry, if that makes sense. But still, AP unit that you can play around early. Blue buff holder probably. Nidalee Nitro, so she's probably going to fit in with the whole Nitro reroll board that we were talking about before. Deal magic damage to current target and magic damage to the nearest 2+1 per amp nearest enemies. Heal per an enemy hit. So she's like a frontline AP user, AP unit, similar to like Shyvana in set 10, I think. So you want her to probably just build her with like solid AP tank items, right? Like she's probably really good with like a crown guard, right? Just give her a health shield and a bunch of AP, and then she scales up her healing and all of her other stuff, which is pretty cool. Her healing doesn't seem to scale. It just scales with enemies hit, so it might be more of like, you might have to play amp with her if she's like a primary carry or something like that. Poppy's Cyber Boss. So Cyber Boss, throw a buckler at the furthest enemy within 4 hexes, dealing damage which scales off of her armor and her AP. Oh, she looks like a crown guard holder, right? Armor and AP. But she's also Bastion, so you can actually scale up her armor pretty well. Final form, blank to them, and magic damage within 1 hex. So I think she like dives the backline, I guess. Maybe she like dives to like the furthest enemy. So she's like an assassin almost, which is kind of crazy. And then she gains an AP related shield. That's kind of nuts. We'll see how it works out. It all depends on how much damage it is, because if she's running up and she's doing AoE damage and she's just like unable to be killed, it depends how much the Bastion works well with her traits. But she doesn't seem that much of like a reliable, like, this is my Giga Tank frontline, if that makes sense. Because if she's diving around, you probably don't want to put tank items on her. You want to build her more towards like, you know, damage tank, if that makes sense, like secondary tank. Seraphine, fire sound wave through the current target, reduced by 40% for each enemy hit. This is like a reprint of the Seraphine in 2 sets ago, like the Mage Seraphine. So that's pretty interesting. I do like her outfit. She looks pretty cool, like at least in the picture. I like the artwork. I don't know. We'll see how broken this is. The scaling doesn't seem that high. 500 does seem a little bit better though. 60 mana, probably Shojin. Maybe blue buff, but probably Shojin. I think Shojin is the threshold for blue buff is usually like 50 mana, so probably Shojin. She also has Techie, which gives her a lot of AP. So if you build her for like a full AP build, she might be able to like delete units in a very effective way, but we'll see how it works out. But typically she's just probably gonna be your holder until you go into Anima. Shako, I think this guy's gonna be a fucking problem. No, like I don't see how he won't be. I hate scaling 1 costs because a lot of times if somebody has a good spot for it, I hate it when a 1 cost becomes relevant late game for free, because the value of the unit is like very low, and I feel like it's annoying. That it does, so I don't like scaling 1 costs. That's personally how I feel. But a lot of times the scaling 1 costs have been notoriously nerfed and useless for a lot of the sets. Think about like Warwick reroll wasn't really a thing in set 12 that much. Before that, in set 10 there was Yasuo reroll that took a really long time before they like giga buffed him to actually be useful. Like they're often not a problem, so the chances are just Shako won't be a problem. It might just be memes, but it seems like a kind of crazy thing to have this guy scale attack damage, and then there's a Slayer trait which gives him built-in Omnifam, Syndicate which gives him an upgrade, and he scales infinite. It feels like if you start the game off with like a Slayer Shako build, this can steamroll out of control. But of course, who am I to know? The set isn't even released yet. Active, he deals physical damage. And his Kingpin bonus, he teleports behind the lowest health enemy within 4 hexes and deals damage. This is really good. He can assassinate the backline maybe. But also the fact that he's going to the lowest health enemy means that he can actually scale up his passive pretty well if you have the Kingpin bonus. So it feels like Syndicate might be pretty essential on him. And then Slayer gives him Omnivamp, which can help sustain him because he doesn't have built-in Omnivamp in his kit. But this just seems like a really good kit, right? It just comes down to the numbers, right? Like once it's balanced and the set's released, if the numbers are high, it's going to be giga broken. And if the numbers are low, it's going to be very situational. And we're just going to see where it lands, basically, right? Where on the dartboard do we land with Shako? Silas, Chains of the Pack. Look at those little cat ears. It's like the Razer headphones. Or I guess they're wolf ears because it's Chains of the Pack. Not the litter. I don't know what you call a pack of cats. Anyways, gain max health and deal magic damage to the current target. This seems pretty interesting, right? More of like a frontline unit. Vanguard, which is the synergy that gives him the health shield as well. So he gains max health, which means it's going to scale his max health shield, right? And he also deals damage, and both of these scale nicely off of HP. So he might be good to reroll because you get the extra HP buff if you 3-star them. So if there's a Vanguard reroll line, he might be a part of it. If they die, gain an additional amount of health. So this seems like he's like a melee frontline style build with AP. I feel like we're seeing a lot of these, especially in the 1 cost. Almost every single unit I'm looking at them, I'm thinking to myself, like, a Crown Guard seems really good here. But maybe that's just me. Maybe it's like my perspective of how I'm reading it. A lot of tanks are usually AP scaling, so it's hard to tell until you actually play them how much damage versus tanking they actually do. But he kind of has like a little bit of like a kit where he can like steamroll. So this might be really good if you have him upgraded early game and kind of like scale nicely. Not like permanently scale, but what I mean is like in a fight, he might be hard to deal with because if he keeps gaining health, and he's part of like a takedown, he'll just keep gaining health, and if you have him upgraded and you have items on him, he might be hard to kill because he's just gonna keep getting max health. And then if you have some sort of built-in some sort of Omnivamp or something, he could be like a good item holder. He seems like a really flexible item holder. All right, you can hold AP, hold tank, hold Omnivamp, and then you can transition late game or commit to him. Who knows? Vi, so this is a Cypher unit. So Cypher is the lost streak trait, and then Vanguard as well. So gain a shield that rapidly decays over 4 seconds. Vi's next attack deals physical damage. So this screams to be Titans, right? She has like scaling on everything. She seems mostly like it's kind of crazy. She has a lot of AP scaling. Like look at this AP ratio, 325 for the shield. Like that's a lot. And then the damage is just 500. That seems like a lot. Am I crazy? It seems like a lot. But either way, gain a shield that rapidly decays over 4 seconds. Vi's next attack. I mean, it is a lot, but the shield does disappear. It's not like a shield that just stays indefinitely. And then she gets an empowered attack. It's interesting. She might be somebody that can ramp up really well into a fight. We'll see how it plays out. Xayah. Send a large vine towards a target, stunning them for 1 second, and a smaller one to the nearest target that deals. So this is like Xayah in the current set. I'm sure this will be strong. If you look at the this is what I mean by the AP ratios. Like if you look at this AP ratio, it's like 585. Like that's a lot compared to like, you know, look, this is 500 for a 3-star. And then like where was the other one? Morgana. Morgana was like 480. Like this looks like a lot. And the mana threshold isn't even that much lower. Right, if you're comparing like Seraphine, who hits 2 units and then it decreases and it starts at 500, and this hits 2 units and it starts at 585, like this seems like a pretty strong unit. Maybe that's just me, but that's how I'm comparing the numbers, right? 2 costs now. 2 costs. Darius, Syndicate Bruisers, so dedicated lost streak stuff. Heal and then deal physical damage. And 20% Sunder. So this is our utility unit. He does Sundering, so he reduces armor. Kingpin bonus increases ability range to 2 hexes. Damage reduced by 10% per hex. Heal health for each enemy hit. So this seems pretty interesting. I'm not sure if it's going to be like a Darius carry type of thing. The numbers don't seem crazy. So it doesn't seem like a reroll thing. But maybe I'm wrong about that. Who knows? But Sunderbot, so always look for Darius if you're playing around AD. Something that you can use as a utility. This is a good utility unit. Echo. Heal health and then deal magic damage to the current target. So he's like a frontline AP melee unit. He's also strategist, so keep aware of strategist being a thing that you can play around. Strategist with street demon. I think there's another strategist street demon, which we'll see later. So this is somebody who can help out your whole board quite a bit. What's interesting is that he's a AP melee, so if you play around Echo being like a damage dealer, you can also put him in the backline because you don't have to frontline him. You can make him walk up and then he gains the damage amp from strategist. That might be a cool tech or something to do. Graves. Attack fires 5 projectiles in a cone that deal physical damage each. Graves casts every 2 attacks. Okay, so he's like a little bit of an auto attacker, which is pretty interesting. We're going to see if his ult scales with attack speed, then he'll be a really good Gwinsu holder. But if it doesn't scale with attack speed, the chances are you just want him to just attack. Or give him just bow items. Dash next to the target and quickly fire 2 empowered shells that deal physical damage per projectile. So that's pretty interesting, right? It seems like he can pump out damage, right? This seems like he can pump out damage, right? It's like bang, bang, and then dash. Bang, bang, dash. Bang, bang, dash. And then Golden Ox gives damage amp. So, like, building with, like, crit and attack speed might be really good. He's Executioner, so he's going to have built-in crit as well. So, like, glove items might work out really nicely. I don't know. It seems good. It seems like an interesting kit. It just comes down to how much damage he does, right? If he's a tickle monster and he just like does like these numbers don't seem very high, but it just comes down to like how much damage is he pumping out per second. You know what I mean? Which comes out to like his base stats, which like you know I can't tell you by looking at this, right? Like I'm not that smart. Allow heal health and then deal magic damage to current target within 1 hex. Reduce their magic resist by 15 for the rest of the combat. So this is interesting. She has a little bit of a shred effect. It's not like a pure shred effect, but this is something that you can hold on to play around AP lines a little bit better. Jin, fire bouncing grenade, which hits 4 enemies, dealing physical damage and 20% sundering. So this is another sundering unit. So we have two cost units that both sunder. That's pretty interesting. So AD looks like a nice little thing that you can play around. You have some built-in utility pretty well. So that's nice. LeBlanc. Send 5 sigils, alternating between the current target and the nearest enemy. Each dealing 65, 95, 145 magic damage. Every cast send 1 more sigil. So she seems like a hyper caster. She's also a strategist, so she gets damage amp. And she's Cypher, which is the dedicated lost streak. Ooh, so is there like a lose streak into strategist and then you just play up resources? That might be an interesting cash out of Cypher into strategist. She scales with casting, so you really want her to have like a blue buff probably. Right? Like blue buff, maybe she works and does damage. We'll see. But that seems interesting. Nafari. Nafari gain 15% Omnivamp is the passive, which is pretty interesting. Deal physical damage to current target, then summon 3 pack mates that deal this, plus 1 per amp alphas that deal damage to the current target. So the active, she's like a frontline attack dealer, which is pretty interesting. Okay. And then just a lot of damage. Yeah, it's hard to tell with the numbers right now. Omnivamp scales off of AP though, which is interesting to note. But everything else scales really hard on AD, so she's like an AD frontline kind of user, which seems pretty interesting. And then this amp, I don't know how strong this amp is, hard to tell. Rost, Divinicorp, Vanguard. So knock the target into the air for 1.75 seconds. Over the duration, heal, health, and deal physical damage. So he uses a lot of stats. This might, like, there might be like a Ross Divinicorp reroll line, because if you look at this, he heals based off AP and HP, and then he does physical damage based on AD. So this guy is really hungry for stats, and these numbers seem pretty good, right? Like when you're starting to get over the 500 threshold for damage, it seems pretty good. Now the cast does take a while, so the chances are you might not be that big of a damage dealer. But I think this is going to be like who you probably want to play around in your Divinicorp. He also has Vanguard, which gives him a health shield buff. So I don't know where he falls. He seems like he's like a mixed little bit of everything. So he's either going to be a jack of all trades, master of none, and he's going to suck, or he's going to be broken. That's what I look at when I see this. But maybe I'm wrong, of course. Shyvana, Nitro, Bastion, Techie. So let's see what this is. Every second for the rest of combat, heal, health, and deal magic damage to adjacent enemies. So she has like a little bit of like an AoE tanky healingness to her. This is actually really big because this HP scales if she gets to 3 stars. So when you're thinking about the Nitro reroll line, there's actually a pretty good ability. And it scales with HP. She is a Bastion, which gives her armor. It would have been crazy if she was a bruiser, but she does have a mixed bag of tricks, right? She has Bastion, which gives her armor, her ability that gives her healing, and then she scales really well off HP. So you want to build HP items on her probably. Well, she doesn't scale really well off HP. I'm just saying she has HP scaling. But it's probably like tank items, right? Gain max health. Oh, she gains max health off AP. So you probably just build her with more AP tank items. You probably don't have to build her HP because she's going to scale her HP anyways, right? And then as she scales her HP, she heals more and does more damage as well. Like this I don't know what the right build is. I think it's more 1% HP. Like, I don't think you build her towards HP. You probably just 3-star her and call it a day. You probably build her more towards AP, right? Because the AP scaling is, I think, is a little bit better. I think the AP scale is a little bit better, and AP will convert itself into HP, right? Like, yeah. Yeah, so I think you build her more with AP tank items. Skarner. Gain a shield for 3 seconds and dredge up a missile. When the shield ends, hurl the missile at the group of the most enemies within 2 hexes. Okay, that's pretty cool. Dealing armor magic damage to the centermost enemy and 50% of the damage to enemies adjacent to them. Okay, so he has like a little bit of an AoE, hits the most amount of units, and then just does like splash damage. He's also Boombot and a frontline unit, so he can also do some more AP that way, which is pretty interesting. Twisted Fate. Gain 3 ability power each attack. Oh, wow. So this guy's probably like a Guinsoo user, right? He just scales up really fast if he attacks a lot. Rapid fire as well. Okay, so we got our resident Guinsoo 2-cost. Throw a card at the current target, and then the Kingpin bonus is throw a random special card that deals magic damage. Throw all special cards at 3 nearby enemies. Okay, this is pretty interesting. Red card hits enemies in 1x area. Okay, yeah, whatever. Him and multiple cards. Guinsoo carry, Syndicate, so maybe you play him around the Syndicate line into a cash out, but he scales really well, so that's pretty cool. When I say scales well, I mean within a fight. I don't think it's permanent scaling. Vayne, rapidly fire 3 attacks. It's crazy that she rapidly fires, but she's not a rapid fire. Maybe I'm crazy. The first 2 deal bonus true damage, and the final attack deals bonus true damage. Okay. Like, she might be a Guinsoo user as well. She's Slayer, so she's like she's synergized with the Slayer builds, the Slayer boards, I guess. Anima Squad gives her like tankiness as well. I don't know where she falls. She's a 4-hex. It's hard to say. Whenever I read something about like attacks doing true damage and firing multiple attacks off, it feels like you usually want them to have a bunch of attack speed, but it just comes down to like how it fits out, how it works out when she's actually like pumping out damage. Vagar. I'm gonna say it again. I know some people say Vagar, some people say Vagar. If you Google it, Google tells you to pronounce it Vagar. That's why I say it like that, and there's lots of people that say it like that. I don't care. If you disagree with me, that's fine. I'm not gonna change the way I say it. But I got a lot of hate comments because of it. Deal 300, 400, 540 magic damage to the current target. Final form and magic damage to adjacent enemies. Okay. The thing with this guy is I think that you want him to be 3-star, because the extra damage amp that you have is pretty substantial. You get 13% extra damage amp by 3-starring this guy. So I think if you're ever playing him, besides being an item holder, you want him to be 3-star. Like, he's like a reroll unit, right? It screams reroll. Like, this screams reroll, obviously. AP scaling is also pretty high, right? Whenever you see a number that's like in the upper 500s, usually that's a pretty good number in my experience. But obviously that's my experience, and it could be different. 3 costs. Time to look at 3 costs. We have Braum, Syndicate, so the lose streak, Vanguard. Gain a shield for 4 seconds, and when it breaks, deal magic damage to the 3 closest enemies and chill them for 3 seconds. Okay, so this seems pretty interesting. Vanguard as well gives shielding. So he's going to get multiple chills off, right? It's not only going to be his active that he gets the shield, he's also going to get a shield with Vanguard. So the timing on his shields might allow for this ability to proc. Oh, wait, no, it's not a passive, right? Oh, it's not a passive, so that doesn't work. I don't think it works, right? It's not a passive. This is an active, so it won't work with the Vanguard shield. Okay, never mind. Kingpin bonus. Gain 20 armor and magic resist every 4 seconds. Braum's next attack deals armor, MR, HP. Like, this guy just building like a tank. Look at this stuff. Hello? Scales off every tank stat? 100% armor and MR plus 10% max HP. This is kind of nuts. This guy looks okay. It's hard to tell though. It comes down to like his base stats again, which I won't be able to tell you off rip. Draven, Cypher. Oh wait, no, Syndicate isn't the lose streak. I think I've been confusing stuff. Sorry if I'm saying Syndicate is the lose streak. Syndicate is the one where you get the hat. Cypher is the lose streak. Excuse me. I probably misspoke like 100 times during this video. My bad. Cypher. This guy's the lose streak guy. Hurl 2 massive axes at the most enemies in a line, dealing physical damage before returning. Damage reduced by 20% for each enemy hit. So he has like an AoE piercing kind of strike, which is pretty interesting. Rapid fire, so you probably want him to be like a Guinsoo user, I guess. Really high mana threshold though. Pretty high, so he's not going to get that cast off that many times. I don't know how I feel about that. Hurl 2 massive axes, dealing physical damage before returning. I mean, sure. You know what also I found? There's nobody that reduces, nobody that shreds of the 2 costs. So I'm hoping to see a shredding 3 cost, because the utility is kind of a bit whack this set, it seems like. But anyways, I digress. Let's continue. Fire 4 lasers at the current target, and 4 more split between 2 enemies, each dealing magic damage and reducing magic resist by 6. Okay, so we have another reduced magic resist by a certain amount. So it's not pure shred, it's like kind of like pseudo shred. But this is our another shred bot. So we have a Lowy and we have a Elise that can provide shred for our team in our early games. Okay, cool. Fiddlesticks, Boombot. For 3 seconds, tethered to the closest 3 enemies, dealing magic damage per second split between them. Tethers apply 20% shred. Okay, so this is our actual shred bot. So you want a Fiddlesticks if you're playing around shred a little bit early. So shred, and then heal the Fiddlesticks. Okay, so that's this is your shred bot. You probably want him to cast at least once. Get off the shred and then worry about it. I'm not sure if he's a reroll. Boombot seems like it works really well with reroll. This might be like your reroll guy. He's an AP frontline unit that shreds, so you get a lot of value off of him with Boombot, right? If you don't remember, Boombot from the previous video, when I explained it, it procs magic damage, which does like a magic damage burst damage. And then it also takes the amount of damage that you took and adds to that damage. So because this is magic damage and this guy shreds, you have like a really good synergy with his trait where he just like, you know, could do a bunch of damage for your team pretty easily just by having him there. Or like a good chunk. So this might be maybe even a reroll unit, who knows. Galio, Cypher, the dedicated loss streak, and Bastion. So gain durability for 3 seconds, afterwards heal. Deals this much magic damage and stuns for 1 point. So he's a little bit of a stun bot. That's pretty interesting. And a Bastion. So you might want to play him with your Bastion synergies. Gragas, Bruiser, Divinicorp. So this is pretty good. You can get your Divinicorp synergy. Heals health and then throws a cask at the large enemy through hexes, dealing magic damage. Okay, so that's cool. Jarvan. So does he have like a stun? Like the old Jarvan? Strike the most enemies in a semicircle, gaining 270, 300, and 350 shield, okay, per enemy hit. Deal AP to enemies hit and reduce their armor. So he has a reduction of armor effects. This is another utility unit that you can play around. Jinx. Fire 5 rocket at random enemies within 2 hexes of the current target. Each rocket deals physical damage. Each cast fires an additional rocket. So she scales really well into a fight, because she can easily just like snipe a backline if you position her same side as a backline carry. So that's really interesting. She might be a really strong reroll style unit. Mordekaiser. Gain a shield for 4 seconds. Slam the current target, dealing magic damage to a 2 hex line. Stun all enemies hit. He stuns as well. This is good utility. Probably want to play him almost always if you're playing around bruiser lines. That just seems really powerful. Rengar. Street Demon Executioner. Oh, I didn't look at 3 traits. This guy has 3 traits. Jarvan. There's not that many though, right? I'm gonna go back to the 2 costs because just Shyvana. Shyvana's more reroll. Jhin has 3 traits. I feel like there's not that many 3 traits. 3 traits are usually like what you can play flex around pretty easily because they have so many synergies. Rengar heals health, then does physical damage and strikes. Each cast increases the leap range by 1. So this is pretty interesting. He also scales into a fight. A lot of these boards, a lot of these units scale well into fights, which means that there might be a lot of vertical frontline traits that are played, right? Whenever you're seeing things that's like, you know, fires an extra rocket every cast, you want to have a frontline that supports that, right? So a lot of these units, when you're looking at them, you want to have like an inherent very tanky build, or else they might not do anything, because a lot of their kit often might revolve around the fact that their kit scales within a fight. So that's something just to be aware of. Divinicorp Slayer. So attacks deal physical damage to enemies adjacent to the target. So that's cool. She has a little bit of an AoE effect. And then Fire Beam 2x's beyond the current target, dealing physical damage to enemy hits. So she kind of shoots through the target. So she can snipe the backline, but it's only 2 hexes. She doesn't go like full screen. So there might be some positioning interesting things, right? Like you're kind of like trigonometry, or like, what's it called? Linear bisection, or whatever you want, whatever the term is, where you're like going through a point and extending and projecting to the other side. Varus, fire chain that deals magic damage and stuns for 1 second. So this guy has a little bit of a stun effect. Chain links 3 closest enemies and then deals some extra damage. Okay, so that's a little bit interesting. He's also executioner, so he gets crit chance. Anima Squad, Amp, and Strategist Yuumi. So Yuumi gain 3 mana every second per amp. Launch a magic missile at the current target that bounces to the nearest enemy. Deal magic damage to the current target. If they are already marked, deal 200% damage. So launch a magic missile at the current target that bounces to the nearest enemy. Deal magic damage to the current target to the other, marking both of them. If they're already marked, deal. So she scales into a fight as well, which is pretty interesting. So if you like amp up a Yuumi and you get her to like hit everything, she'll just start doing like an extra amount of damage. She basically does triple the damage, right? Deal 200%, deal 200% damage. She'll just double the damage. So she'll double damage if she's hitting everybody, but her base damage doesn't look that high. But maybe I'm wrong. She also has a very low mana threshold, right? So very low mana threshold. Strategist, so she gets damage amp. If you build her with like a JG and you give her like a blue buff, like doesn't she just like permacast? It just comes down to like mana lock and that type of stuff. Sorry, I'm just making sure my playlist is still going. Alright, 4 costs. We're winding down. 4 costs. Annie. Throw a fireball at the current target, dealing magic damage. A mini fireball split between the target and 2 nearby enemies that deal magic damage. Okay, so she has like a little bit of an AoE effect. Pretty strong. Every 4 casts, summon Tibbers. So you want her to chain cast, right? She's like a blue buff. You want her to cast as many times as possible. Makes sense. And then you get Tibbers out, which deals more damage. Okay. Aphelios. Fire a Moonblast at the largest group of enemies that deals physical damage. Equip for Chakram. +1 for each enemy hit by the blast. Bro, what are these words? That lasts for 6 attacks and then deal bonus physical damage each. Like when you have attacks that deal bonus physical damage, it feels like you want them to auto attack a bunch, but I can't tell. I can't tell because I don't understand everything about this kit. Brand. Throw a paint bomb at the largest group of enemies within 5 hexes. That's a large range, which is pretty good. Dealing magic damage to enemies within 1 hex and less damage to the other one. So he has like an AoE thing. This might be like a good utility bot as well, right? You put Morello on Brand. He has really good AP scaling, and he also, not like really good, but he has decent AP scaling, it looks like. And he has Techie as a trait, which means he's like the dedicated like Sork unit kind of dude. So that's pretty interesting. This guy might pop off. Cho'Gath, so the frontline unit, bruiser, scales off HP probably. Fire a disorienting blast in a cone, dealing magic damage. Scaling off 3% HP is pretty good. 10% starting. Gain max health, get bigger, and increase the size. So I want you guys to understand, maybe Cho'Gath is good, maybe he's bad. We don't know yet because the set isn't released. I want all of you to understand, don't get baited by the fact that he gets bigger. A big thing that happens in TFT is when number goes up, Guinsoo, Titans, these are items that are made way more often by people in the game just because number goes up and it feels good. Units that grow in size always are played more than other units because it looks like they are inherently tankier. Do not get baited. If the unit sucks, the unit sucks. I want to give you guys a PSA, okay? You gotta actually look at him and see if he's actually tanking, okay? That's gonna be a really big part of it. Be careful, okay? Everybody gets baited by this. That gets bigger, everybody gets baited by it all the time. Be careful, right? That's part of your TFT journey, is not getting baited by these words. Leona. Vanguard. Okay, so is this a frontline unit? Gain durability for 4 seconds. Deal magic damage to 2 largest clump of enemies. That's fine. So she has like gains durability. Vanguard already gives durability. I feel like her kit doesn't feel like it's very great. Because this seems like maybe it's broken. It depends on the numbers now. But she stuns, right? Stuns. So she's probably not your primary tank. She's probably like your I'm gonna do some extra work for you tank, right? So she's like your secondary tank if she's doing the stun. Enemies damage take bonus magic damage from allies attack. That's pretty interesting though. So she seems very utility focused. I'm not sure it's gonna be your primary tank, but you want to make sure she gets a stun off. You want to make sure she gets her cast off as soon as possible. So maybe Protector's Vow. What's the other one? Adaptive Helm. You want like a mana item on her to make sure, like a mana tank item, something that's built with a tier. Seems really important, right? If you get her to cast early and they're all taking extra magic damage, like that seems like, you know, that's how you sway a fight in your favor. Misfortune. Ooh, look at her hat. She looks cool. I like her outfit. Fire 8 waves of bullets towards the largest clump of enemy over 2 seconds. 1, 2. That's a lot. That's pretty fast. Enemies struck take physical damage from the first bullet of each wave. And 25% less. Okay, so how much damage is this? 8 times 57? What's 8 times 57? 8 times 5 is like 400? What's her mana thing? 150? This guy has to cast twice in order to do as much damage, and she also does AoE. This unit looks like it's busted. Am I fucking crazy? These numbers look crazy. Kingpin bonus fire 3 more waves. Okay. Is she... I think you just build her pure damage. This is so much damage. I think you build her for pure damage. I think you go like Guard Breaker, Death Blade, IE. You know what I mean? You put like all that shit on her and you just let the choppa sing. Like this is a lot of damage. Like these numbers, like it's spread out over multiple bullets, yes. But like 11 times 57, 500 damage, and she also shoots towards largest clump over like 2 seconds as waves. Like I'm assuming it's like her ult in League of Legends from what I've seen when I watch people play League. Right? If it's hitting multiple units as well, that's like 500 damage on one unit plus, well, maybe not 500, but you know what I mean? Like somewhere between like 450, 500, 560, 570, like technically 8 times 11 times 57 is going to be closer to like 600, 700 almost. And she's shooting a bunch of bullets and she's like doing like massive chunks of damage. She's also doing it as like spread damage. So if you just scale that with like a bunch of AD AP, you can probably like one-shot stuff. Like she might be like a one-cast wonder. She has Dynamo, which helps her to generate mana anyways. So the chances are you just play in Dynamo. She generates the mana like that, and then you just let the choppa sing. But maybe you put a mana item on her. She's not a Gwinsu person. This isn't a she's not, you don't put Gwinsu with this type of build ever. She doesn't care about auto attacks or attack speed. You just care about her casting. It's like a Giga ult. You want her to nuke the board. That's interesting. She seems like an interesting unit to play. This seems like a lot though, but obviously things will change. It's not even out yet in PvE, so you know. Nico! I love Nico. Strategist, I'm excited about that. Gain a shield for 4 seconds. Create an expanding cone that pops 3 times and then it chills. So she's like a little bit of like a frontline unit. She'll probably not be like a main tank. She might be like a secondary tank. She doesn't really have any tank stats besides just giving her a shield and then durability from strategist. So we'll see how it works out. Sejuani Bastion, so the armor one. Gain 30% more armor and magic resist from all sources. That seems kind of nutty. Last time they had this on a set, the unit was broken for the entire set. I'm looking at you, Wukong. Throw an EMP at the closest enemy that explodes after 2 seconds. It deals magic damage and then stuns them for 2 seconds if it's a 2-star Sejuani. This is kind of nuts. So I don't know if she's a main tank or a utility tank. You always want to build her with some sort of mana item, right? Protector's Vow, Adaptive Helm. One of those is probably guaranteed, like you need it on her, because this is massive. This is the best stun we've seen so far. So she's like the Giga stun, which is crazy because doesn't Leona also stun? Yeah, but she only stuns 1 unit. There's a lot of stun this set. This is crazy. There's a lot of stun. There's a lot of stun. Interesting. I'm not sure if she's like a main tank or just a secondary tank, because this makes her feel like a main tank. This makes her feel like a secondary tank, right? Because usually if you have a main tank, you want the ability to be related to them tanking, right? Like you want an ability that's something like, you know, gain durability, gain HP, gain armor, and like I'm fucking unkillable for the next 3 seconds. Like that's what kind of ult you want on a main tank. And then on a secondary tank, you want stun, because like that's, you know what I mean? It doesn't help with them actually surviving. But it's interesting because she also has this passive, so who knows? Vex. In 15% Omnivamp, 8% overhealing from Retribution's damage is converted to bonus true damage to its primary target. Send a shadow towards the target, dealing magic damage to enemies passes through. The shadow then explodes, dealing this much damage to the target and this much within 1 hex. So why does she gain damage amp? I think I remember I watched her in the video. She's a 2 hex unit. I think she kind of like, when she does her ult, she like dives towards the unit so she can take damage. So she gets this Omnivamp, then she gets extra healing. So you don't want to put her in like a frontline's position. You want her to get the overhealing to get like the extra true damage. It seems like a very weird kit. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but executioner. So you want to build her with like ult, crit ult style. Xayah. Wait, there's a lot of 4 costs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Oh, they're not. It's around the same. Okay, so Xayah. Impale 6 feathers into the current target. They each deal physical damage. When the target dies, the feather seeks out nearby enemies within 2 hexes, dealing additional physical damage. So each dealing 162? 162 times 6? This seems like a lot of damage. This unit also seems pretty strong, but, you know, we'll see how it plays out when it actually plays out. You probably just want her to build her cash. She doesn't seem like an auto attacker. Marksman, she gets a bunch of AD from her built-in synergy. Anima Squad, also cool. We're gonna have to do a drip tier list for this set, because the drip on these units is insane. Look how cool she looks. Look at her hat. Holy. We're gonna have to do a drip tier list. I didn't do a drip tier list for the last set because I felt like, you know, most of the units didn't have drip and I didn't want to go through it for set 13. But holy, are you kidding me? Man, I like her outfit. That is a cool looking unit. Zed. Throw a shuriken at the first. Oh, this is also Cypher. This is the dedicated lost streak. So you can lose streak into a Zed player or also synergize with Slayer. So he has built-in Omnivamp from Slayer. Throw a shuriken at the furthest unmarked enemy. Furthest unmarked enemy. Oh, Jesus Christ. That's not good. This is set 10 Akali. Oh boy, the positioning is gonna happen. Oh boy. Magic damage and marks them, then become untargetable, teleport to them, and summon a shadow on every other marked target. Deal damage to the adjacent enemies. Oh my god, this guy's just an assassin. He dives the backline and kills your carry. Holy shit, you gotta put your carries away from the center. You gotta put your carries in the center. Oh my god, it's frontline carry against Zed. What is this shit? This is insane. Okay, how much is the untargetable? Is it only when he's dashing? Hopefully it's only when he's dashing. This seems kind of nuts. This guy is going to be a cheeser. This guy's going to be the one that makes people quit the set. He's going to piss people off. Like, I don't think, even if he's not broken, even if he's really weak and he dies instantly, this is going to be the tilter. This guy is going to be the tilter. It looks like Slayer is the fucking degenerate. The degenerates are going to come out, right? I think Slayer has all the degenerate stuff. You have Shako in there. You have that other dude. You have Zed in there. Like, somebody's just going to say, me Slayer, and you're just going to know that that person, like, you just know you're not going to have a good time. You're like, oh, great, there's a Slayer player in the lobby. Oh, like, I have to pay attention now. I have Shako diving to the weakest enemy. I have Zed diving to the most HP. Sorry, the furthest backline. I have the other dude that scales. It's like, oh boy, that's a crazy kit. This looks broken. That's a crazy kit. We'll see how it plays out. Obviously, if he hits like a pool noodle, of course it's worth shit. But this is also a cash out trait unit. So like, imagine if you cash out, you have like giga items, and then there's a fucking Zed on their board. Holy. Okay, Zeri. Dash to a nearby location so quickly, an untargetable echo lingers. Like, I don't get it. What does this mean? Dash to a nearby location so quickly, an untargetable echo lingers. This reads like somebody was trying to add lore to a TFT description. Just say, summon a clone. Dash to a nearby location and summon an echo. Like, what is this? Why are we having adjectives? The echo attacks as if it were Zeri, but deals, like, what is this? It reads like fan fiction. I don't know. So what, she basically summons a clone, right? She summons multiple clones. I've seen this in the video, the dev drop. And then echoes. She summons echoes. And they just do extra damage. She seems like an auto attacker. She has rapid fire synergy. So she might be a Gwinsu holder. I don't know if she gets enough attack speed from rapid fire. That's going to be something that comes through in like the final kit and patches and optimizations. Because rapid fire already gives a lot of attack speed. Depending on how the fight goes and how much frontline you have, you might just build her with like some bow items, but not all bow items. But she seems like she'd probably make good use of what's it called? AS, right? Ziggs. Ziggs is a strategist, which means I inherently am excited to see him. Throw a bomb that hits the most enemies in a plus shape. So this is like MF in 9.5, like Bilgewater MF. Did like the little cross thing. Final form, whole row, and column, which is pretty crazy. So the final form is, how do you get final form activated again? I forget. Let me hover Cyber Boss. If you have 4 Cyber Boss and they all upgrade, right? If not, it's just your strongest. That's very interesting because this seems pretty. That seems like a lot of AoE. So magic damage to enemies within 1 hex of the center. Because like the way I'm looking at it, chat. Let me explain. Let me explain what I mean by it looks like a crazy amount. Because like let's say he's a 70 mana threshold, which isn't that high. Strategist, so he gets damage amp. Cyber Boss, so he gets like the other stats from Cyber Boss, where he gets some AP, also has some survivability, so it's gonna be hard to deal with. If it hits an entire, like it hits a plus shape, right? But if it's a whole row and column, that's really good because if you're targeting a tank, your tank's in the center in the middle, that's who he's probably hitting. Whole row, whole column, if it's a plus shape and it aligns in like the direct, if it's a plus shape that doesn't align in the direction that okay. Let me go through the 2 scenarios, right? If it's a plus shape, that's like a plus shape that just is a plus shape on the screen, then he's going to hit all of the tanks, right? He's just going to hit in an entire row across all the tanks, which is not maybe the best thing, but it's pretty good. You can just like delete an entire front line because he just goes bang and just hits all of the frontline units, right? If he's hitting in a plus shape relative to the frame of reference of him looking at the unit, I don't know the best way to describe it, but like if he's facing the unit and then the plus is in the shape of the way that he's facing, then hitting an entire column means that, like, you know, if you draw the line between him, the center of the board where the enemy tank is, and then the opposite side of the board, then he has almost like a sniper effect where he's going to hit the enemy carry. So either way, it seems good. We'll see which one it is. But both cases, it seems like a pretty good upgrade if you can get Cyber Boss on him. Which, if you're playing Ziggs as a primary carry, the chances are you will just have Cyber Boss on him, right? Because you can just play Poppy, which is a Bastion. So you play Poppy for a frontline synergy, and then Ziggs as your main carry. Obviously, if you're playing Vagar reroll, then Vagar is going to be 3-star and it's going to be a problem. But if you play like Vertical Cyber Boss like you did Kabuko, then you just upgrade everybody. So this could be a really good high cap for like Vagar reroll as well. But that's pretty good. That seems like a pretty good thing. I feel like it's essential. I don't think this plus shape is going to do diddly squat without Cyber Boss activated. So I think you really want Cyber Boss activated, and then strategist is just good for a whole board. So you just find the strategist that fits the board, and that can be your board. Some sort of flex board around it. 5 costs. Finally, we're at 5 costs. We're at 5 costs. Woohoo! Last little couple units. Aurora. So Aurora, Anima Squad, Dynamo, so gains mana. On first cast, swap places with the leftmost champion on your bench. This is what we saw in the video on the dev drop reveal. So she swaps, she becomes on the bench, which means she probably won't be able to be targeted. Champion gains attack speed. So the champion that she puts in gains attack speed. So if it's somebody that wants attack speed, that might be pretty good. But also, she has this effect that if the swap champion dies, return to the board. So what you can do is you can also swap her with a tank. I don't know which is going to be better. If you want to swap her for a primary damage dealer, where they're like, you know, you can swap her with like a Zeri, and then the Zeri just has a bunch of attack speed, and she's already an auto attacker, which seems kind of nuts. Or if you swap her with like a Giga Tank, and then the Giga Tank just lives forever, so your Aurora is never targeted. She can never be sniped. You know, you don't have to worry about Zed. You don't have to worry about shit, right? But it just feels like a free fawn, because she's basically going to continue to attack while on the bench. And then her active is teleport to the most enemies in a line, dealing damage to each one, plus damage split between all enemies hit. So these numbers are obviously going to be high because she's a 5 cost. This seems like a lot of damage. And then she can't swap plays with another Aurora. That's probably because of like bugs and like some bullshit that people are going to try and do. So just note, won't work if it's another Aurora. Don't try and overcook. Garen, gain a shield, deal physical damage, and send a wave that deals physical damage to enemies hit. If waves hit 2 or fewer units, gain 50 mana. Okay, so he has like a mana refund effect. He can kind of pop off a little bit. I think the main reason you play him is because of God of the Net, right? This thing just seems broken, that you can just scale really well off this Garen. It's going to be kind of hard to play him otherwise. I think he's not quite, like, this doesn't scream to me like tank. The shield seems pretty good, but, like, in general, like, he doesn't have Omnivamp, so you got to build him, like, a melee carry, so, like, you know, it's, like, a little bit awkward, right? He doesn't have, like, tank stats, right, that scale him really well. So, you know, if you put him tank items, then he doesn't do more damage. If you make him deal damage, then he doesn't heal. Then you need to put Omnivamp on him, but then you know what I mean? It's like, but I think the main purpose of him as a splash unit is God of the Net, that you get him to pop off really hard. Kabuko. Kabuko's back. A lot of people like Kabuko. I thought Kabuko was pretty cool. But in the set that he was released in, there was this really annoying hero augment that was kind of like ruined it for him. Bruiser and Cyber Boss. So passive attacks deal bonus magic damage. That's interesting because maybe you want him to attack really fast, maybe like attack speed items on him, who knows. We'll see like how it plays out when he's actually a unit that we can try out. At 35% health, gain a shield, decaying over 8 seconds, so he has like a huge survivability buff. Attack speed, Omnivamp, and mana. Alright, so this is crazy. He just becomes Xayah when he's at 35 health. What's his active? He gains durability. So you're telling me you have a unit that scales off HP, right? Sorry, Bruiser. Scales HP, gets a health shield, and also gets durability? And Omnivamp, and mana? 100 mana? Okay, his cast really takes a while, though. He's 220 mana. So, like, you know, chances are he's not getting many casts off. And then he stuns, knocking up enemies within 1 hexes, and then final form is 2 hexes. So he has a knock up, and then he does more AP. This guy just seems like an annoying nuisance, more than anything. Like, he just seems like an Xayah unit that's just hard to kill, and like also does annoying stuff. He doesn't cast that often though. He has a very high mana threshold, so the chances are he'll be like a one and doneer. He'll get his cast off, and he'll become empowered. So you're basically just playing him mostly for the passive. Like, this is probably only going to happen 1 time, right? But it's a good cast. Look at this. Slam down, and then you do a percentage of the target's max health as magic damage. Like, isn't that nuts? Like, if you just have this guy on a tank, he just, like, instantly does, like, insane chip to everybody. This guy just seems like a good unit to play. I don't know. Renekton. So this guy has the Overlord trait, so you might want to make him as some sort of carry, which is kind of interesting. So what's this thing? Deals physical damage to enemies within 2 hexes and burn and wound. So this is the only unit we've seen that applies burn and wound. So right now there is no unit besides the Renekton that has built-in Omnivamp. So you're gonna want to prioritize making Omnivamp. Excuse my English and excuse my speaking. It's been a long day. There is no unit that has built-in anti-heal. So you're going to want to build your anti-heal items, because we saw that there are quite a few units that can reduce armor and reduce magic resist. So there is the possibility to access that utility through units. But so far, the only unit that applies anti-heal is a 5 cost. So we went through all the abilities. We didn't miss it. We didn't see it anywhere. So that's just something to pay attention to. But if you need it, you got it with this guy. And then he gains health. First cast, enter frenzy mode. That deals damage. And then second cast, frenzy mode now strikes thrice. And then he cannot cast again. So he's like a very like early game unit, I guess. Or sorry, early round unit. You just kind of play him and you hope that he pops off early, because he stops casting. So he gains HP and then he just does a bunch of damage and then he just kind of sits there. I don't quite get it. I don't quite understand it. He's Bastion, so he doesn't scale off this HP that well, but Bastion gives him some armor, and Divinicorp helps like the whole board a little bit. What does he give as a Divinicorp bonus? Attack speed? That's pretty good for capping out a board. Everybody can make use of attack speed. Alright. Demon Trigger. Bro, is that what it's called in League? Bro, she actually is a Devil May Cry ripoff. I thought people were just saying it because they're uncultured. Like, she literally is a Devil May Cry ripoff. Demon Trigger? Her ult is called Demon Trigger. Really? Really? Alright. Dash towards the target and fire a volley of 30 amp bullets over 2 seconds, split between 3 hexes. Each bullet shreds, so she has a little bit of, wait, shreds? Shreds is AP reduction. Shreds 4 armor? I feel like they used the wrong word. But anyways, I make that mistake a lot too, but maybe I'm not making that mistake. It shreds 4 armor and then deals physical damage reduced by 20% per hex from Samira. When the volley ends, dash back to safety. Okay. For the duration of the ability, Samira is unstoppable and has Omnivamp. Okay, so this is confusing to me. There's a lot of stuff. So she gets amp, right? 30 amp bullets. So that's like an amount of amp that you put on her. She gets more bullets. She basically just jumps in, does damage, and jumps out. So you just want to build her for like max DPS. I don't think you build her Omnivamp. I don't think you build her like a frontline unit. You probably just build her with like IE, Deathblade. Just try and one-shot everybody. Just let her jump in. She has 2 seconds to kill as many things as possible, and then she runs the fuck out. You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure that's the idea here. Or that's what I get from reading this. She seems like out of all the 5 costs so far, all of them, like Aurora, Garen, Kabuko, Renekton, Samira, like of all of them so far, Samira seems like the one that needs the most work to get to work. Do you know what I mean? Like all of these seems like you just throw them in, right? Like if you level and you throw in an Aurora, it's basically like a +1 unit that just doesn't get targeted, right? Garen is insane for scaling. Kabuko seems like insane in terms of utility and just like being hard to deal with. Renekton seems like a decent, just like, you know, get in there and does a bunch of work and has like Divinicorp, so you have like a little bit of buff. She seems like the one that you kind of have to play towards, right? Like if you see a Samira, unless you have like items for her, it's not like, she's not just like a throw in there and just does stuff for you, if that makes sense. She seems like the most like needy, because like if you have her as like a 1-star Samira and she just dives in and dies, she's just done. So you really want the damage items. I guess it comes down to a lot how she actually plays out in fruition, but it just seems concerning. It seems like she's just gonna dive in and die, or she's gonna dive in and not do that much damage. But obviously it comes down to how they scale her up. Urgot for 60 seconds. Gain attack speed and lock on to the lowest target within 5 hexes. Attacks also fire 3 rockets, dealing bonus physical damage. He's a boombot and an executioner, so he has crit chance. Each cast The first time a locked on enemy falls beneath health, reel them in, execute them, and grind them into parts. I don't know what grind them into parts means. Oh, grind item chance 15%, gold chance 20%. Oh my, this guy seems broken. You execute and then you have a 20% chance of getting some gold? Like, this guy seems like insanely good early. Executioner means that he's probably going to get them down to that threshold pretty easily, hopefully. He gains attack speed, so the chances are he's like a Guinsoo holder, right? Like, it screams like auto attack, like you just whittle somebody down, bang, kill them, right? He executes with Executioner. He also has crit. So like you know, like Guinsoo IE, Executioner activated. Executioner activates on a 2 trait. Boombot also gives like extra damage. But the execute seems interesting. This part seems nice. Anything that gives you resources, has a huge chance to scale you really well into late game. How many 5 costs are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's only 8. That seems like a little. That seems not that much. A Viego, Soul Killer, Golden Ox Techie. All right. When a unit dies, absorb their soul and heal health. Okay, so he has like a bit of a sustain here going on. Jump to the largest clump of enemies within 2 hexes, dealing magic damage to adjacent enemies and magic damage to other enemies within hexes. 20% shred. So he also has a shred effect. It's actually pretty interesting. So that this guy has utility. So if you want to play him late game, even if you're not playing towards Viego main carry, he could jump in and just shred a lot of the units because he has a diving effect that also shreds. So that's pretty interesting. So good utility. The damage doesn't seem massive. But he also heals. So that's nice. If you build them into Techie, and Golden Ox gives damage amp. So if you're playing something like Golden Ox and you cap out high around Viego, this has the potential to be crazy. Because with Soul Killer, Golden Ox, and Techie, he has a good amount of, how do I phrase it? He has a good opportunity to gain a lot of stats through his actual traits, which is pretty cool. So there's a good chance that he actually becomes viable no matter what. Like for late game carrying. Also, AP tank is usually pretty nice because it means that you can take a lot of items, right? Because if he's AP tank, he can take AP items, he can take melee items, and he can take tank items because he's an AP frontline unit that dives. And finally, we have Zac. Zac has no traits except for Virus, so he's like the king of throw in as flex unit. His passive is that at 10% health, he splits between 2 copies of himself with 50% health. So that's kind of crazy. And then he bounces 3 times on enemies that stuns them. So the thing about him is that this virus thing scales him into late game. He gets extra HP and ability power by buying these free things in shop that you then slam onto him. And then he gains the extra HP and the ability power. So this guy can be a problem late game. No matter what, an early Zac feels like you should always play it. Right? You just always play early Zac. And it scales you well into late game. So this is one of those units that's like, you know, I don't want to say it's exactly like Rumble, but it's kind of like that. Like if you hit him early, it's kind of nuts. And you have a lot of those this game, which is kind of scary, right? Like when I look at this, I see concern with Garen and Zac. Like when I read their abilities and stuff, it doesn't seem that crazy, but their innate traits seem really strong to just hit early, right? You have Garen, you just get a bunch of extra synergies on your board. Not like as bonus synergies, but you can apply them to units that can scale your board to like really strong levels. And then if you have a Zac really early, this guy's gonna be so hard to deal with. He's gonna be like a giga tank by the end of the game. But I think that's what they did. They kind of made the 5 cost a little bit more how 5 costs used to be. Like last set, one of my biggest gripes with 5 costs was that they felt very like in place, right? Like if you had a LeBlanc and you didn't play like a Sork board or a Black Rose board, she kind of didn't do well. LeBlanc maybe was one of the better ones. She was more flexible. But like think about Jinx, right? Jinx really didn't do anything unless she had the base stats from Rebel. And part of her balancing was the fact that Rebel gave her a bunch of base stats. So like there were 5 costs like that where they kind of felt like you only can really play them with like a certain board and you couldn't just throw them on any board and make them work. But a lot of these units, they feel like you can just throw them in. Like Kabuko seems like he's just a hard to deal with tank. Garen seems really broken. Aurora basically is a fawn. You get to play an extra unit anyways because she will swap in an extra unit. So if you want to level to play like, I don't know, let's say you want to level and you want to play some 4 cost tank, you can level and you can play Aurora and put the 4-cost tank on your bench, and then you get both of them, right? Like you literally get both of them. So Aurora, good unit to just splash in. Garen, splash in. Kabuko, you can splash in. Renekton, maybe it's situational because you're gonna cut some HP off a unit. So, but still, Samira feels like she needs some like help to get her working. Urgot, he executes and he gives you gold, so you probably want to play him if you see him. Viego shreds and he dives into a large clump of people, so like utility. And then you have Zac, which is like good early game. Like a lot of these 5 costs feel like you can just bang throw them on your board. And that's kind of how I used to like 5 costs. I don't know how broken they are, but you know, it's kind of like, it seems kind of interesting. I think that's the most fun part of the set right now for me, is looking at these 5 costs. But anyways, going through all the units, we went through all of them. I gave my early thoughts. Obviously, we're just reading numbers and stuff. Haven't seen the units all that much. I've seen it a little bit. We're going to play PBE as soon as PBE is out. I'm going to start playing it and posting gameplay videos of like the different traits and synergies. Overall, I feel like it's hard to tell how flexible and how strong each of the unit or the traits are, but a lot of them do seem interesting. There is a good spread of utility on some of the low-cost units, which is nice. There is a good uniqueness to some of their abilities and their casting that kind of seems a little bit interesting on some of them. There might be some unique builds, and there's a lot of stuff that I'm not sure about yet because they do seem kind of unique on like whether or not they could be re-rolled or whether or not they actually scale really well into late. But I do like the design of a lot of the units. I think they're very nice, and I think this hopefully is a really great set if everything gets balanced really nicely upon release. So thank you for watching. Hopefully that was enjoyable, and see ya. Bye-bye.